to Professor Anthony Glees. He's a security expert at the University of Buckingham. Anthony, thank you for joining me this evening. I wonder, we seem to have a bit of a confused picture here. We seem to be hearing different things at different times in terms of whether this person acted alone, whether the terrorist was part of a cell, whether it's connected in any way to what happened in Las Vegas. Just from everything you've heard, seen and have been reading about in the last while, plus your lifetime of expertise in this area, what do you think we should take from this attack?
Well, I'm afraid to say not a huge amount. I mean, the FBI knew nothing about this man. They knew nothing about his carefully premeditated plan to kill as many people in New Orleans as he could. And at this stage, frankly, I'm not inclined to believe them when they say there was no link between what happened in New Orleans and what happened in Las Vegas. I mean, that would be a coincidence that stretches the idea of coincidence.
Do you think they know? Because we're in this era now, I don't want to get too much into this, but we're in this era now where people want information really, really quickly. Do you think this has been coordinated enough? Do you think that, I mean, we've got contradictory information coming out of various different authorities. Do they know what's going on?
Well, they've given every impression, Peter, of not knowing what is going on. So they didn't know this was going to happen. OK, we'll think of that. But they also, first of all, said it wasn't terror-related, then that it might be terror-related, then that it was terror-related. First of all, there was a link between what happened in Las Vegas and what happened in New Orleans, and now there isn't a link, but they say they're still looking for the link. The idea that you could go from not knowing anything about somebody to knowing everything you need to know about them within a matter of hours is absurd. And I think the FBI is giving every impression of wanting to appear, particularly with the new president, who may take a very firmer line towards the FBI, that the FBI want people to think they are very much in control of this, when actually they should say, excuse me, we're really not certain what's happening. So what we do know, without doubt, is that this was an Islamic State-inspired attack. We know that because of what was done, and we know it because of the Islamic State flag. And that immediately begs the question of why was this an Islamic State-motivated attack? And in my view, there will have been a direct connection between what is going on in Syria at the moment and what this perpetrator decided to do in murdering as many people in New Orleans as he can. Nor should we forget, this is textbook Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, tactics and strategy. We've seen it here in London, Westminster Bridge. So
we have indeed. We've seen it as well, or a very similar attack in Germany as well, just before Christmas. Actually, on that exact point of Syria, Anthony, I've been waiting. I've been preparing this because Chris in Brighton, he sent me a message on text about an hour ago, but I want to read this in full to you and ask your opinion on it, because you know these things far better than I do. Hi Peter, Happy New Year. Regarding Islamic terrorism, the Western media has just spent weeks applauding the fall of the Syrian government to Islamist terrorists who have murdered their way through Syria for years, killing thousands. Yet the same media wrings its hands when Islamists commit singular terrorist attacks in the West. What hypocrisy. Syria, a secular state under Assad, is now an Islamic State, with its prisons emptied of terrorists. Al-Qaeda and others are now in charge of its military. The former head of MI6 said before Christmas that the new Syrian rulers are now a threat to the world, yet Western liberals applaud. It is bonkers, says Chris in Brighton. What is your take on that, Anthony?
Well, I think Chris is right. I mean, as Donald Trump said, one hesitates to quote him, what he said, the world's gone a little bit crazy right now. And Chris is absolutely right that what is happening in Syria has a positive side in that Assad is an appalling butcher, and the family that has tortured and killed in Syria for 50 years or 40 years to stay in power, he's gone. That's good. That's one dictator less, and gone to his bosom buddy Putin in Russia. But what's not good is that he has been replaced by people who give every appearance now of being supporters of the so-called Islamic State. And people have got to understand this sort of key fact. The Islamic State has morphed out of Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda, and it is a group of terroristic Islamist Sunni Muslims, different from Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, who are Shia Islamists organized by Iran. We've been very focused because of the war in Gaza and the Lebanon on Iran and the Shia Islamist extremists. And that, in a sense, may be the reason why the Sunni Al-Qaeda, Islamic State terrorists have sort of gone beneath our radar. And the New Orleans attack, and I suspect the parallel attack on the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. As I say, it beggars belief that there is no connection between the two. But if that's what the FBI says, we'll want to see the evidence, and that they've gained inspiration. And what I would also say to Chris is this, that the emergence of what looks like IS 2.0 in Syria, and every day there are more things coming out of Syria, women can't do this, women can't do that, the role of religion, etc., that make one think this is IS 2.0, impacts directly on us here in the UK.
And I want to ask you about that, Anthony, specifically in regard to vehicles being used as a weapon in mass areas, because we've seen, I mean, it feels like a long time ago, it really isn't. It's about 10 days ago what happened in Magdeburg happened, that terror attack there. Now we've got New Orleans. Could this happen? And we've seen homegrown terror attacks happen in Britain. You mentioned London Bridge. But in terms of a vehicle as a weapon, do you think that is something that could happen at a mass event here in the UK? And are the security services ready for that, or ready to prevent that?
Well, I'm sure that it is flashing bright amber in MI5's headquarters right now, even as you and I are having this chat. It has happened in the past, and it can happen again. Renting vehicles is risky, and there should be registers of those people renting vehicles, particularly people who come from an Islamic or Muslim background. And I know people will object to that, but it needs to be looked into at this point in time, because that is what the pattern is. These attacks come straight out of the Al-Qaeda Islamic State handbook. And they have said, you know, if you've not got bullets, use a kitchen knife, use a car, kill as many people as you can. So this is not new. What is new now, though, is the emergence of this new regime in Syria. And that's a big problem for us here in the United Kingdom. Yeah. First of all, because they're refugees, there will be legitimate refugees coming from there, but there will also be agents of the Islamic State who will seek to come to the United Kingdom. And that is why the Channel boats issue has now become a critical national security issue to be dealt with, not by rescue ships, I'm afraid, but by warships. We need to protect. We can protect our borders, and we now need to protect our borders, because we don't know how things are going to develop in Syria, but we do know we've been on the receiving end far too often in the past.
Anthony, thank you very much indeed. That's Professor Anthony Glees.